The 2018-19 school year is about to start, and with new school supplies and new school clothes, Chesterfield County Public Schools will have new start times for most elementary, middle, and high schools. I'm here today with Chief of Schools, Dr. John Gordon, and Intervention Training Specialist, Dr. Connie Honsinger, to discuss the new start times and research behind the change and share ways that we can start the new school year with better habits to make each day productive and best for our students. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
So, Dr. Gordon, there was a lot of work that went into the changing of these school start times. Could you discuss what the changes are going to look like and the process that we went through to do so?
Yes, definitely. We wanted to make sure that we took a lot of research that we've had over the last couple of years. This wasn't a quick knee-jerk decision. We took feedback from students, American Heart Association, many child organizations, pediatricians really gave us examples of the average number of sleep hours that students needed, and basically based on their age level and their age group, when students actually were the most active. So at the elementary level, for example, we're going to have three tiers of start times at 7:45, 8:30, and 9:25. At the middle school level, almost all of our schools, except for one, Tomahawk Creek, will be starting at 7:35 a.m. And at the high school level, it will be 8:30 a.m. And one of the main reasons why we're having those different tiers, we wanted to make sure that we would be able to have as many buses on the road, which will also prevent double backs. We'll have about 507 buses that will be transporting our students to start the 2018-2019 school year.
That is incredible when you think about that many buses and that many students. So there certainly was a lot of work that went into that, the thought that went into the change. Can you discuss some of the advantages behind changing the start times?
Oh, our high school kids are going to be so excited about this. They'll be able to sleep later. And one of the things I've talked about in the past with a lot of parents and constituents I've spoken to, I have a rising ninth grader, and on the weekend she will not get up until 11:30 or 12 noon. Meanwhile, my rising fourth grader, she will be up at 6:30, 7 a.m., even on the days that she doesn't have to go to school, because her body is just used to that. So we wanted to make sure that in making these changes, we also had some student input as well. And we know this is going to cause a little bit of adjustments when it comes to extracurricular activities and events, but we also think it'd be more beneficial for students in the long run.
So, Dr. Honsinger, we're talking about the importance of sleep, and that was really one of the driving things behind that. Can you share really the science behind the importance of sleep and why it really impacts our students as learners?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a saying that goes, those who sleep well think well, and there is actually a lot of research behind that. When we look at students in schools, we know that students who are better rested consistently outperform students who are sleep deprived. In fact, in a recent study, one of the things they've discovered is that nearly 90% of our high school students are actually chronically sleep deprived. And so even just missing 1 hour of sleep a night can accumulate. It causes a big deficit and continues to impact things like attention, memory, mood, certainly, decision making, and even in a lot of cases it's been proven that it changes reaction times. So when you consider students who may be driving to school, that's important. It's important to be alert and to be well rested.
I know as a mom of children that went through high school at one time, decision making is something you want them to be as clear on as possible. Yeah. And this is so exciting that we're doing this, and so it's affecting the time that we're going to school, but it's potentially going to impact some other traditional activities. Can you speak to that, Dr. Gordon?
With the high school time moving back about an hour and 15 minutes or so, we know it's going to have a little bit of an effect on our extracurricular activities, specifically outdoor sports. And when you look at that fall transition time frame from fall to winter, for those sports that are participating in the fall, practice time is going to be a challenge. We do know that we will have the outside areas will be getting darker earlier because of that time frame, usually around 5:30 p.m. when that occurs. But we're in the middle of a light study where we are starting to decide which schools will have some additional lighting put up, which schools need to have their lights replaced. We think that will help out. But more importantly, we also believe it's going to help out our coaches and volunteers and officials that are coming to those games that in the past have usually really had to rush right after work to get there. We think with just pushing things back will allow them to get there to be more prepared, to be more ready for the games, and hopefully it may also help us to get some calls too.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Honsinger, as everyone's getting geared up and getting ready, and regardless of whether or not your child is going to see a big change in their start time, Could you speak a little bit about just some things to really parents can do to help establish that positive sleep habit and routine at home?
Sure, absolutely. Well, we know summer's different. You know, we know kids' routines are not as structured, but the word routine's really important because as we get closer to school start times, it is important to start establishing that routine. So if you were used to staying up later, it's time to start scaling that back a little bit.
Right.
We know the more consistent you can be, the better sleep patterns evolve out of that. So, you know, if you go to bed at 10 one night and 8 the next night, it's difficult to kind of get into that rhythm. So really starting to scale that back and then hold a pretty consistent time. We know, you know, based on recommendations that younger children we ought to be looking at 9 to 11 hours of sleep a night. And for older students, anywhere between 8 and 10. So routine's really important. The other thing I would really recommend is that, you know, we talk about limiting screen times, but really even having access to like the phone or screens in bed, you know, at night. You know, when those messages come dinging in, students naturally want to see, you know, who's emailing, who's messaging. So to have those off would really help limit the disruption in sleep.
I bet.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, this is an exciting time for
It
Chesterfield,
is.
an exciting change. And thank you so much for coming in and sharing your expertise and providing families kind of with some information to navigate this in the most successful way. And for all you do to serve our students and families in Chesterfield. And thank you for joining us on Engage Chesterfield.